Welcome to this special bonus episode of History Calling, where I have some incredible news for you. In an historic breakthrough that may finally solve one of England's greatest royal mysteries, researchers have confirmed that skeletal remains discovered in the Tower of London in 1674 and now kept in an urn in Westminster Abbey do in fact belong to the missing princes in the Tower, aka Edward V and his little brother Richard of Shrewsbury, Duke of York. Stay tuned to hear all the details and make sure you watch till the end to hear the most shocking reveal of all. As you may know, Edward IV, father of the so-called princes in the Tower, died in April 1483, leaving the throne to his eldest legitimate son, Edward V. Young Edward was then living at Ludlow Castle in Shropshire with his maternal uncle Lord Rivers and his older half-brother Richard Grey. They shared their mother Elizabeth Woodville. The group set out for London for the child's coronation, but on the way they were met by his paternal uncle Richard, Duke of Gloucester, who at this stage at least seemed only intent on being the new protector for his underage nephew. Not an unreasonable expectation, I'll grant you. He was the king's senior surviving adult male relative who was royal. Things quickly turned nasty though. Gloucester had Rivers and Grey arrested and sent north, where they were executed on trumped-up charges of planning his death, and he seized control of the king and continued on for London. In the capital, the Dowager Queen Elizabeth took her other children into sanctuary in Westminster Abbey, but after Richard arrived and placed Edward V in the Tower of London, ostensibly to prepare for his coronation, he insisted on having the boy's little brother, another Richard, this time Richard of Shrewsbury, Duke of York, in his custody too. Elizabeth was compelled or persuaded to surrender her youngest boy, who joined his brother in the Tower. Things now went from bad to worse for them, though. Gloucester declared that they and their sisters were illegitimate because their father had contracted another marriage before the marriage to Elizabeth, and said that this meant that he was the lawful heir to the throne, which he promptly took in June. What of the boys, though? Well, they were seen playing on the Tower lawn, practicing their archery, but soon they disappeared inside its walls and were never seen publicly again. The new Richard III never offered any public explanation as to their fates, and by the end of the summer it was widely assumed that the boys were dead, almost certainly on his orders. The most popular theory which emerged was that they had been smothered in their sleep, but stories about what happened have raged in the century since, and to be honest, no one truly knows what happened in the Tower in 1483. Nearly 200 years later, in the reign of Charles II, workmen discovered the skeletons of two children beneath a staircase in the Tower, a detail which matched one account of their supposed death and burial. And on the orders of the then monarch, these bones were placed in an urn in Westminster Abbey, bearing an inscription which identifies them as the lost boys. They were examined in the 1930s, but as DNA analysis was not yet available, this examination is of limited use to historians. It couldn't even confirm their gender, though the examiners, who were an anatomist and a dentist, and perhaps guided by what they wanted to be true rather than what they could actually prove, claimed that they had two young boys. What it did reveal, though, despite the absence of many bones, was that the skeletons were around the correct age, the children were of a slim build, and the examiners felt they exhibited signs of being close relations due to similarities in the skulls. They could also see that the older individual suffered severe dental decay. After the examination, the remains were reinterred in the urn, where they have remained ever since. There have long been calls for these bones to be subjected to modern DNA testing, especially since the remains of Richard III were found in Leicester in 2012 and a DNA profile established for him. Now at last, the current king has granted permission for similar tests to be carried out on the urn bones, and the results will rewrite the history books. Not only did carbon dating of the remains establish that they belonged to two individuals who died in the late 15th century, DNA was successfully obtained from the bones of each juvenile, and researchers at Balmoral University were able to build profiles for both individuals. The results prove that the skeletons are of two males who are full brothers, and most exciting of all, a comparison to the patrilineal DNA of Richard III, which is passed down the male line, has provided a match. Geneticist Dr. Ed Warwick, who was a member of the research team which carried out the tests, also noted that both boys share 25% of their DNA with that of King Richard, saying in a statement that, quote, "This proves that they are indeed his nephews and rules out the possibility that they are some other distant relatives on the male line who happen to possess the same Plantagenet patrilineal DNA. Richard's only other known nephews through his brothers all either live to be adults or are known to be buried elsewhere, and so these two skeletons must be Edward V and Richard of Shrewsbury." His colleague Dr. Beth York also noted her personal happiness at being able to shed light on this long-running mystery, saying, "I've always felt a strong interest in this story and a real affinity with these boys. I'm delighted to have been a part of this project." That's not all either. Forensic anthropologist Dr. Meg Stanley was able to accurately estimate the ages of the two boys based on an examination of their bones, and has confirmed that they were 12 years old and around 9 years old at the times of their deaths, proving that they died early in the reign of Richard III and were not still alive by the time Henry VII came to the throne in 1485 after the Battle of Bosworth. This rules out one conspiracy theory that it was Henry who had the boys killed in order to secure his claim to the throne. The King has also put out a statement from Buckingham Palace reacting to the news and expressing his delight that part of this mystery has now been solved and that his own ancestor Henry VII is off the hook. He also noted that perhaps now historical fiction writers can stop making up stories about Henry killing his brothers-in-law or suggesting that the famed pretenders to the throne, Lambert Simnel and Perkin Warbeck, were actually the sons of Edward IV. After more than 500 years of uncertainty, it seems the story of Edward V of England and Richard of Shrewsbury may finally be entering a new chapter. Make sure to subscribe to my channel with the notification bell switched on to keep up with this breaking news story, and if you've made it this far into the video, may I just say, Happy April Fool's Day. Yes, that's right, look at the date this video was published on, it's a prank. As of this episode's production, those bones in the urn have never been DNA tested, though I wish they would be, and anyone who tries to genuinely convince you otherwise is a fool or a liar, so please don't be suckered by them. It would be front page news if any such testing was genuinely done. Also, there's no such institution as Balmoral University either, I made that up, and the names of that research team were a bit fishy, were they not? Ed Warwick certainly knew a lot about the various male-line nephews of Richard III, didn't he? And imagine Meg Stanley exonerating Henry VII or Beth York feeling an affinity with the princes. Weird. The King would never put out such an unprofessional-sounding statement either, just in case you're wondering. But did I catch you out? Be honest and let me know in the comments, and please do of course actually subscribe to the channel and check out my other online platforms, including my Patreon site, website and book about Irish ancestry, all linked in the description box for you. I promise I usually provide genuine history documentaries based on original primary sources, and to prove this to you, I invite you to watch my episodes about the real history of the princes in the Tower and what a DNA examination of the bones in the urn can actually tell us. I hope I gave you a little smile, and please do have a great day and keep learning.